Human rights are those rights to which an individual is entitled by virtue of his status as a human being, while civil, political, social, and economic rights are dependent on an individual's status as a citizen of a particular state. His human rights are not determined by this condition. Thus, the scope of human right is very wide. This set the standard for the provision and expansion of civil, political, socio-economic rights. Again, where an individual's civil, political, socio-economic rights are exhausted, he can still hope to get some relief under the umbrella of human rights. So, for instance, a foreigner or a refugee or a prisoner of war or a proclaimed offender may have been left without ordinary rights, yet the beneficent hand of human rights will not be withdrawn from his head. So, human rights constitute the very source of all rights of human beings. They have embodied the scheme of ideal rights and they provide for moral foundation of any system of rights. So, in a way, they are akin to the concept of justice, as the idea of justice determines the principles on which law should be based. So, the idea of human rights sets the standard on which all other rights should be based. Moreover, when ordinary rights are reinterpreted in the light of human rights, they enter the ever expanding domain of human welfare. For example, the right to life in this context may be interpreted to include the right to live on uncontaminated land, to breathe in clean air, and to consume clean water, and government may be held responsible to satisfy these conditions. Therefore, human rights are inalienable and inviolable rights of all human beings and are essential for human survival and human development. So, the first international expression of human rights to which all human beings are entitled was the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in 1948, and it is described as the International Magna Carta. And this Universal Declaration consists of 30 articles divided into 4 parts, consist of basic principles underlying all human rights and the civil and political rights, certain economic, social and cultural rights, etc. Later on, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was bifurcated into 2 separate covenants, namely the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. So the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights constitute what is now widely regarded as International Bill of Rights, which has been supplemented by various other international treaties, conventions and declarations which are listed below. Discuss the concept of human rights in India. So the Constitution of India has a rich content of human rights. The preamble, the fundamental rights and the directive principles of the state policy reflect the principles and provisions of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of 1948. So the 4 ideals of the preamble are aimed at the promotion of human rights. They are under as justice, liberty, equality, fraternity. Justice in social, economic and political spheres, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and opportunity, and fraternity assuring the dignity of the individual. Moreover, the fundamental rights that are under Part 3rd of the Constitution contain an elaborate list of civil and political rights divided into 6 categories. The right to equality, right to freedom, the right against exploitation, the right to freedom of religion, cultural and educational rights, and the right to constitutional remedies. And moreover, the directive principle of the state policy in Part 4th of the Indian Constitution comprises of economic, social and cultural rights. So they can be classified again into 3 broad categories: the socialist principle, the Gandhian principles and the liberal intellectual principles. And besides the fundamental rights included in Part 3rd, there are certain other rights contained in other parts of the Constitution. For example, the right to property in Part 12th of the Constitution. And in due course of time, a number of human rights are declared as integral part of the fundamental rights in India. And moreover, the Constitution of India and the laws of the Parliament as well as the state legislatures not only consist of several human rights but also provide for the establishment of national and state commissions for the protection and promotion of these human rights. The National Human Rights Commission is a statutory body Established in 1993 under a legislation enacted by the Parliament of India, namely the Protection of Human Rights Act 1993. So this act was amended in 2006. The Commission is a watchdog of human rights in the country, and that is the rights relating to life, liberty, equality, and dignity of the individuals guaranteed by the Constitution or embodied in the international covenants and enforced by the courts in India. So the specific objectives of the establishment of the Human Rights Commission in India are to strengthen the institutional arrangements through which human rights issues could be addressed in their entirety in a more focused manner. Secondly, to look into allegations of excesses independently of the government in a manner that would underline the government's commitment to protect human rights. And thirdly, to complement and strengthen the efforts that have already been made in this direction. The Commission is a multi-member body consisting of a chairman and 4 members. The chairman should be a retired Chief Justice of India, and members should be serving or retired judges of the Supreme Court. And they must have knowledge and practical experience with respect to human rights. And in addition to these full-time members, the Commission also has 4 ex-officio chairmen. These are the chairman of the National Commission of Minorities, the National Commission of Scheduled Caste, the National Commission of Scheduled Tribes, and the National Commission for Women. The chairman and members are appointed by the President on the recommendation of a 6-member committee that consists of the Prime Minister as its head, the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, the Deputy Chairman of the Rajya Sabha, the leaders of the opposition in both the houses of the Parliament, and the Central Home Minister. Further, the chairman and the members of the commission hold the office for a term of 5 years or until they attain the age of 70 years. And moreover, the salaries, allowances, and other conditions of service of the chairman or a member of the commission are determined by the central government. Now let's discuss the functions of the National Commission for Human Rights, which are as follows. Firstly, it inquires into any violation of human rights or negligence in the prevention of such violation by a public servant. Secondly, to intervene in any proceeding involving allegations of violation of human rights pending before a court. Thirdly, to visit jails and detention places to study the living conditions of the inmates and make a recommendation thereon. Further, to review the constitutional and other legal safeguards for the protection of human rights and recommend measures for their effective implementation. Further, to review the factors including acts of terrorism that inhibit the enjoyment of human rights and recommend remedial measures. Further, to study the treaties and international instruments of human rights and make recommendations for their effective implementation in India. To undertake and promote research in the field of human rights and to spread human rights literacy among people and promote awareness of the safeguards available for the protection of these rights by encouraging the efforts of the non-governmental organizations, NGOs working in the field of human rights and to undertake such other functions as it may consider necessary for the promotion of human rights in the country. The National Human Rights Commission of India has its headquarters in Delhi, and it can also establish offices at other places in India as well. It is vested with the powers to regulate its own procedures, and it has the power of a civil court, and its proceeding do have a judicial character. And it can call for information or report from the central or the state government or any other authority. And the commission has its own investigating team, or we can say investigating staff for investigation into complaints of human rights violation in the country. Moreover, the commission is not empowered to inquire into any matter after the expiry of 1 year from the date on which the act constituting violation of human rights is alleged to have been committed. So in other words, it can look into a matter within 1 year of its occurrence. Further, the commission can take any of the following steps during or upon the completion of an inquiry. Firstly, it may recommend to the concerned government or authority to make payment of compensation or damages to the victim. Secondly, it may recommend the concerned government or the authority the initiation of proceedings for prosecution or any other action against the guilty public servant. Thirdly, it may recommend to the concerned government or authority for the grant of immediate interim relief to the victim. And fourthly, it may approach the Supreme Court or the High Court concerned for the necessary directions, orders, and writs. From the above, it is clear that the functions of the Commission are mainly recommendatory in nature, and it has no power to punish the violators of human rights nor to award any relief, including the monetary relief to the victim. But notably, its recommendations are not binding on the concerned government or authority, but it should be informed about the action taken on its recommendation within 1 month. So we can that the commission role may be recommendatory but or advisory, yet the government considers the cases forwarded by the commission. So it is therefore improper to say that the commission is powerless and it enjoys a certain or a great material authority, and no government can ignore its recommendations altogether. Moreover, the Commission has a limited role, or we can say powers and jurisdiction with respect to the violation of human rights by the members of the armed forces. And in this sphere, the Commission may seek a report from the central government and make it recommendations. So the central government should inform the Commission of the actions taken on the recommendation made by the Commission within 3 months. The Commission submit its annual and special reports to the central government and to the state government concerned. And these reports are laid before the respective legislatures. Various human rights issues that are taken up by the National Commission for Human Rights are listed below. So now let's also discuss the Human Rights Amendment Act of 2006. So the Parliament has passed the Protection of Human Rights Amendment Act, and the main amendments carried out in the protection of the Human Rights Act 1993 relate to the following issues. So firstly, it reduced the number of members of State Human Rights Commission from 5 to 3. Secondly, changing the eligibility conditions for appointment of the members of State Human Rights Commission. Strengthening the investigative machinery available with human rights commissions. Empowering the commission to recommend award of compensation, etc., even during the course of inquiry. Empowering the National Human Rights Commission to undertake visits to jails even without intimation to the state governments. Further clarifying that the chairperson of the National Human Rights Commission and the State Human Rights Commissions are distinct from the members of the respective commission. And the Act also enables the National Human Rights Commission to transfer the complaints received by it to the concerned State Human Rights Commission. And the Act also provides that the chairperson of the National Commission for the Scheduled Caste and the chairperson for the National Commission of Scheduled Tribes shall be deemed to be the members of the National Human Rights Commission.